Hello and welcome to this session, Teaching Kitchen here. I'm Madelyn Wilcox, Oncology Dietitian with the American Oncology Network. Thank you for coming to this cooking series and welcome to my kitchen again. It's been a couple times we've been here together, but today what we're going to be preparing is called a mezze board or a mezze platter. Many of us have seen charcuterie boards, which tends to be, the thought process behind these, but this is actually going to be much more of a plant slant version of a charcuterie board, which usually is more like meats and cheeses. As you can see prepped here, it's going to have a lot more of that plant slant that we're looking for. As a oncology patient, when able, transitioning to more of a plant-based diet is encouraged, pending, side effects and tolerances is there. But we're going to go through creating our own mezze board today with lots of different plant-based foods, and some herbs, nuts and seeds will be included, and just some fun things. Just a heads up, these boards can be used for social settings, just like a charcuterie board can, or it can be something that's used for a patient who's looking for a quick, balanced mini meal. A lot of times, we can customize these boards to be something big for a group with a platter. Or like I said, if we're just looking for maybe a small little mini meal, we could do something a little bit smaller that's less overwhelming, or even something maybe more like a dinner plate size. Whatever so it feels best for you or whoever you're preparing for. Remember, the plate can make a big difference. It's no surprise that the Mediterranean diet was awarded, I believe, the best diet for the 8th year running. And so the areas of the world that we're noticing these individuals are living long, healthy lives do adhere to more of a Mediterranean or plant-based, plant slant diet. And these areas of the world are also coined the blue zones, if you've heard of those. And they're areas where people tend to have the lowest rates of various chronic diseases, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia. So lots of really good reasons for us to try to mimic this type of eating pattern. And it's also kind of interesting that when you do speak to some of the people who live in these areas, they don't really even consider themselves on a diet per se. It's just part of their lifestyle. And as an oncology dietitian, that's my goal for my patients, is that it just becomes part of their lifestyle. These things will be found in your pantry, in your fridge, in your freezer, maybe if you have some stored. So you can whip this up anytime. So let's get started. I prepared a couple things here just for the sake of time. From start to finish, this process can take you anywhere from 5 minutes to 50 minutes, depending on the types of items. But the basics of a mezze board include usually some type of bread. So that could be pita. Today, I've actually got some whole grain bread. Sourdough is fine too. But what I've done is I've actually cut them into little strips, which are going to be really fun to kind of eat with. This is a really big, like, hands-on meal, finger food. So it's great for the whole family if you've got little ones, or just, wanting a casual summer plate that you can kind of have fun with. So I'm just going to take a couple strips of my whole grain bread, and you'll see this kind of masterpiece come to life as we're building each component. So usually it's a bread, like we said. You can also do things like little maybe seed-based crackers. So I've got actually some Mary's all seed crackers. You may have seen these. They're nice and grainy. So I'm just going to kind of separate them out onto different parts of the platter. I've also got some little breadsticks here, which I think are just fun, and they're going to add some interest to them. So I'm just going to lay them kind of right on this top portion. So as you can see, we've got a couple different bread or, kind of more starch related things. Our next category is going to be fresh veggies. So I've already cut some carrots and some cucumbers here into long wedges. It's really fun to cut things in different shapes, different sizes. It kind of keeps the interest of the platter going too. So just remember that as you're becoming a mezze master, that you don't always have to do just slices, you can do long strips. So I'm kind of just gonna put these, yeah, maybe kind of separate parts. So you can see our plate is building. You can do roasted vegetables too. Some of the mezze platter inspirations that you'll see include like roasted cauliflower, roasted Brussels sprouts. I think roasted carrots would actually be really good too. They have a nice sweetness to them. So you can use, maybe even leftover roasted veggies you had the night before if you're trying to do this the next day. The next thing we're going to do is something like pickled and marinated. Our recipe for this session is actually just a quick lemon garlic marinade. So I went ahead and made that. The recipe is just a little bit of olive oil, garlic, honey or maple syrup, fresh or dried thyme. I actually didn't have fresh, so I just used a little dried. And then some salt, pepper, lemon juice, obviously, and you just kind of, stir it together with a fork. I went a little bit further because I wanted to have this be our protein marinade. So I put some white beans in there. They're actually called butter beans. They're the nice big ones. So I'm going to actually put those into a little bowl and maybe make that a centerpiece of our mezze platter. So I'm just going to put a couple spoonfuls in here. You can kind of see. If you're feeling really fancy, if you had some of that extra fresh or dried thyme, you could even maybe sprinkle a little bit just to give it a little more interest and color. So other pickled things, I probably won't open these just because we're going to fill this plate up, but pickled beets would be good. You could also do any home pickled. So I actually have pickled zucchini and pickled onions in our fridge right now. I think I might put a couple of the pickled zucchinis in there just because they're, why not? Plating is actually a really, big part of a mezze platter. So I'm just going to put a little serving dish next to the carrots here and put a couple spoonfuls of my pickled zucchini. And then another option would be maybe some of those peppadew peppers, pepperoncinis. There's also these herb stuffed peppers. So sometimes you can get a little fancy if you've got any type of pickled or fermented things that you want to throw in there. One item I am going to also include because I have extra, here they are dolmas. So dolmas are actually a stuffed grape leaf. You can get a lot of different kinds. You can find these in international food markets, or you can also find them in some of the regular markets, just in the international aisle. So as you can see, they're little, kind of like little burritos of grape leaves. And these are stuffed with rice and herbs. So you can get some that have gluten-free, grains like rice, or some that contain gluten, things like bulgur, which, depends on your audience and who you're trying to kind of cook for. So I think that will be good for maybe our pickle. Maybe we'll do just a few pickled onions just for that beautiful pink hue. And these also act as brighteners for the meal. So as people are grazing and kind of going over the different combinations, any type of like tang, so think acid, the vinegar, the lemon, can brighten the palate and kind of help with some of that taste perception. So when you do have maybe someone who's having taste aversions with their treatment, trying to include some of these other flavors might be helpful and just appealing to them to kind of make it a little bit more exciting to eat, which we're always looking for. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some fruit on here. We got to have some colors. So I've got some blueberries washed and some grapes. So you can kind of just put these wherever, wherever you feel they should be. I'm going to put some blueberries up here and then maybe over here as well. The other fruits that I have, just because they were on sale, I've got some kiwis all sliced up, and again, you can kind of see they're sliced long ways. So if you wanted to do discs, you could, or you could do these little half moon shapes. Sometimes they're, again, funner to eat when they are in a different unconventional shape. I leave the skin on my kiwis. I don't know about you guys, but I find it to be a nice mix up of texture, not just all maybe the inner part. And there's actually some extra nutrients in the skin too. And then the second fruit that I have in this bowl is actually called a pine berry. It's a cross between a strawberry and a pineapple. They only come out a certain couple times a year where I live. So I picked them up and they should be fun. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of those maybe around the perimeter here. Yeah, and this is honestly something that could be prepped before you have guests over so that you're not sitting here doing all this. You can just kind of throw it together like I'm doing with you on the phone right now. And I think you can kind of see, but this is filling up. So I've got a couple more categories to show you. So we did our fruits just now. So the next item we're going to do are nuts and seeds. I didn't do any nuts, or I didn't do any seeds, but I do have quite a few different nuts. So I've got cashews. There's also a walnut mix. And then I do have pistachios. So basically whatever nut you have, you can feel free just to grab, a handful or so, and then kind of put them anywhere you see fit. So again, have fun with it. Fill your spaces. It's kind of like a little treasure hunt, like when people are eating these boards, because, you might find the last cashew or the last walnut that's snuck underneath the carrots. And it's just, you never get the same bite twice. So there's one of the nuts. I think I will actually add in some pistachios too, just because they sound good. These ones are little lightly salted. So with all of the emphasis on fresh, we can actually, kind of handle a little bit of salted things at times. So we want to, not go overboard, but certainly we can still enjoy, these ingredients when other, majority of our plate is going to be really fresh. So we got our bread, we have our pickled or marinated things, we have our veggies, fruits, nuts, and seeds. So the last item we're going to put on here until we do our little enhancements will be sauces. This is totally up to you what you like to do. I actually have a garlic sauce here. It's called Toom. It's white, but it doesn't have dairy in it, surprisingly. So this is great for your friends or family members who maybe are dairy free or during treatment if they're having like problems with the lactose and become temporarily lactose intolerant. It's a nice spread, and it's basically just an infusion of garlic cloves, lemon, and oil, like an olive oil or a canola oil even. So you can get a nice big spoonful. And because this is so potent, I think what I'm going to do is actually put it in one of these little jars here, or cups, I should say, just to give it a little bit of distance in case, people didn't quite like it and, didn't want it kind of interfering on the others. The second dip or sauce that I'm going to use today is a tzatziki. I will say tzatziki is very, very good homemade. I did not have time to prep that, so I actually just have the general Costco one. But because it also contains like garlic and herbs, I'm going to just partner it right next to the Toom, which is that garlic spread I just used. All right, other dips or sauces could be things like hummus, or there's a Mediterranean eggplant spread called baba ghanoush, but really any sauce that you like. The other thing we're going to add into here would be sweetness. So I've pre-portioned out some strawberry jam. It may sound silly, but sometimes you're just looking for a little bit of a kind of a sweet kick. And so you can sometimes dip a cracker crisp in there, or just kind of have it as, again, like a palate interest, or just something different to kind of break things up. So I know that I have built a massive platter in front of me. A couple more things. I forgot the olives. You can either, this would be considered one of our pickled things. You can either serve these just kind of as a separate little bowl, or if you wanted to sprinkle a few in here, you could do that. So I'll put just a few, maybe around right next to their buddies, the other pickled things. But yeah. So the only thing that's missing is probably a little fresh herb. It may be harder to do this in the winter if you don't have herbs growing outside. You can do like me and have mason jars full of these things for a little bit of a green flash, but it really does tie the whole thing together. So I have some parsley here, flat leaf and curled parsley. And basically you can just shove the sprigs of your herbs. Other ones could be dill, rosemary. We mentioned thyme, that could be fun. Basil would also be very nice, especially if you've got some tomatoes, which I do have tomatoes, I just didn't have room for them. So yeah, that could be another enhancement, but you know, I think we've hit our capacity here. So this is your finished product that we just created, your beautiful mezze platter. And as you can see, it probably took maybe 10-15 minutes at most if I wasn't talking so much. So very nice to serve to guests, very good to serve for patients who again are just looking for something maybe small but still substantial and balanced. I know I'm always looking for mini meal ideas for my folks. Just for reference, like if we wanted to maybe do an ounce of nuts, maybe we could do a handful of dried fruit instead of fresh fruit, some olives, maybe 5 or 6 of them. You could do a couple slices of the bread, and then just a little bit of fresh fruit and veg, and a little bit of the beans. You know, that could probably all fit on this little platter here. And before you know it, you're at 500-600 calories and something more small and maybe more doable for just the time being. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Our team of dietitians is always here to help answer any questions, mezze board questions included. But I really appreciate you being here in my kitchen with me today. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time.